Welcome to the Coffee with Closer show, where we interview real investors that are doing real deals in this current market about how they are finding, funding, and flipping the deals. We talk about what they are doing that is working and the things they did that didn't work so that you can save time and money as you become a real investor. Welcome to the Coffee with Closer show. Hey, we're back with another Coffee with Closers, and I got a new mug for you today. It's called Best Dad Ever. You can guess who gave me that one. As Gene said, wait a minute, I'm the best dad ever. I think we all believe we're the best dad ever, right?
At least I have a cup like that. We'll put it that way.
So I'm actually excited about this interview, guys, because, we're always talking to like wholesalers and rehabbers and people that are doing creative financing. But this one is so much more different because, Gene specializes in senior housing, correct? Did I say it right? Okay.
Yeah, you did.
And so he's a world of knowledge, and we're just going to dig in. We're going to find out, what are these deals like? I mean, why go after senior housing? What's the value there? I mean, why not just rent a house? Or, and he said something earlier that just resonated with me because we were kind of talking about marketing a little bit because you guys know I'm big on marketing, and he has a completely different spin on it. And I think that's important for you guys to listen to and hear. So, Gene, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No, man, I appreciate you being here. It's always good to have somebody on here that's not doing what everyone else is doing. And I'm sure you hear that a lot, though.
Oh, I do. What I do is pretty darn unique, that's for sure.
It is, but it's very lucrative.
Yes, it is.
Or you wouldn't be doing it, right?
That's right. Well, I would love to say I would do it anyway, but the reality is it's very lucrative. Yes,
it is. I know somebody that you work with, and he was sharing with me some of your investing strategies and what you're doing, and I was just like, man, I got to get this guy on the show. I got to get him on the show. So with that said, I like to start the show off with this because there was a point in your life that something resonated, a book you read, a mentor, an uncle, an aunt, somebody said something to you in your journey that made you say, hey, I think I'm going to go be a crazy real estate investor. What was that pivotal moment? And I don't like to spend the whole call on that, but I just want people to know, we all have different wake up moments in life, right? And so what was that for you?
Wow, that's cool because I'm going to give you two.
Okay.
My story and where I started the DNA is very different. I was a professional musician as a teenager, had a small recording studio, music school, small record label, and so on. And it was myself and my brother. So I was 16, he was 18, and we rented a building from a guy for 2 years. So we were tenants, and the building was bad, and the landlord was worse. He'd collect the rent on Friday night and knock on the door on Monday and say, where's the rent? I said, well, we already paid it. I said, show me the receipt. You never give us a receipt. So after 2 years of putting up with that, we literally walked down to the front porch and said, that's it. We're going to shut this whole thing down or we have to get a new place. And I looked up the street and saw a for sale sign literally 2 doors away. And I don't know how long it had been there, but that was the moment. We went up, pulled the for sale sign out of the front yard, brought it back, dialed the phone. So now you know how old I am.
Yeah.
We took the sign down to the realtor's office. He chewed us out for taking a sign out of the yard.
Yeah.
And we ended up buying that property for no money down. And the reason was no money down is because we had no money. We had no credit, no clues. So we had to. But that was the first one. And then I'm gonna jump forward because that's a great question. It was years later, maybe 10 years after doing that, or 5 years, something like that. We were sitting down with a business consultant, had a very successful business, and this business consultant spent a lot of time asking us questions and putting together a plan where we could triple the size of the business. And at that moment, and it was a moment, my brother and I looked at each other and we said, do you want to do that? I said, no, I don't want to do that. Do you want to do that? And we said, that's it. We're shutting down the business. Because we realized we were successful, but we were on the wrong track. We wanted to be rock and roll musicians playing in front of, adoring crowds. And here we are teaching, 8-year-olds how to play the guitar. And it was like, this is not what we had planned on. So those two moments.
Wow. I think that, we all have a journey, right? We all have a moment. My question when you say that is because you had 2 moments, but there was a 10-year gap.
Yeah.
So when the first one happened, What was it? Like you just didn't focus on it again for 10 years, or did it take like that opportunity to come back up and you say, you know what, I'm not letting it pass me again?
No, just those are the two that came to mind. There was many moments in between. But,
okay.
When I say we were 18, that first property, by the way, we bought it. We moved our music school in. We lived above. We ended up selling it 5 years later for a $90,000 profit. Now, keep in mind, today that's not impressive, but this is like 1984.
Oh, man.
That was a lot.
I was a baby.
So we were doing real estate along the way, buy and hold, fix and flip, and we have been doing that the whole time. But the music school part of it, that was what I was talking about, that it was very successful, but we were on the wrong track. And at some time, you just got to shut down the train and move to the right track.
Well, you know what? That's so important, because I tell people all the time, like, look, real estate is this adventurous journey constantly, because you real estate changes. The markets change, opportunities change. You grow as an investor. You move from wholesaling to rehabbing to small apartments to big apartments to commercial to senior housing. Yeah. So like you evolve with it, and you have to be willing to evolve to stay in real estate. Would you agree with that too?
Yeah, and it's really interesting because, just even talking with you here, it just comes to my mind. Most people get into real estate, and I'm going to say real estate got into me.
I like that.
I was a business person, and I needed the real estate because I didn't want this crappy landlord. So that's why we got into the real estate, because it was serving my need. It wasn't, I'm going to go buy an investment property. Most people do real estate for quick cash or cash flow. I did it just because we needed a place for our business to be. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So answer me this one then. At what point in your journey, when you got serious about real estate, did you switch over into senior housing?
I'm not even sure if I am serious about real estate. And I say that because it's just a tool. It's an ends. I was speaking to a group of 300 people last night, and in the room, I asked the question, why are you here? And everybody thinks it's the real estate, and it's not. It's the money that it produces and what the money can do for you. So I heard about senior housing over 20 years ago. I was in a room, hundreds of people, guy in the front was talking about a dozen different ways to make money in real estate. And then he mentioned senior housing, turning a single family home into an assisted living home. And in my mind, this is over 20 years ago. It's like that's, and I ran up to the front and said, tell me more. He said, well, I can't. I said, why not? He said, because I don't do it. I'm just telling you should do it. And how many times we had the guru in the front not even doing what they were saying?
Oh, I know. You know what? And that's why we do this show, Coffee with Closers, because, our whole motto with this show is, when somebody wants to come on the show and we say, well, hey, look, we're going to talk about deals, we weed out the gurus that don't do deals, right? Because they're like, well, I can tell you about my first deal. I'm like, no, I don't need to know about your first deal. I need to know about what you're doing now in today's market, or at least your business model today and how it's producing real estate, today. And so I will tell you this. I did take my hand at senior living when I lived in California.
And RCFE?
I have no idea what that means.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I had no education on it. I had no training on it. And somebody just told me, oh, you can buy like a 6-bedroom house and you can actually put 2 beds in each room. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. Well, the problem is I didn't know what I didn't know. And I went down this path and it was an absolute mess. And that's when I was like, you know what? I should have probably hired somebody that knew what they were doing, but ended up selling the house because I could never figure it out. Anyways, long story short, I saw the potential back then. Yeah. I saw what other people were doing with it. I just didn't get educated, right? Like I didn't spend time with somebody, hence like yourself, that has done. I mean, how many of these have you done? I mean,
well, see, that's doors. Yeah, that's the fascinating thing. I know you guys talk about doors and thousands of, and this, I have 6 of these homes, and that's it. Awesome. Frankly, one of them can pay most people's bills, because here's the reality. Your cautionary tale that you just shared is awesome, because I had somebody say to me, Gene, what you do is so simple. And I said, what do you mean? They said, all you need to do is get a house, fill it with seniors, get a babysitter, and you're done. And I said, okay. Simple, but not easy, right? Completely different. If you don't know what you're doing, do not do residential assisted living. But if you want to learn what you're doing, that I can help with.
Right.
But I want to go back to the guy's story, because I went up and I said, please tell me. And he said, I can't. And I said, do you know somebody who's doing it? And he introduced me to one guy up in Portland, Oregon. And I said, I got to contact this guy. And I did. And I said, will you teach me how? And he said, no. And I said, why not? And And he said, I don't want to give you my business and teach you everything. You'll take all my business. My thought is there are millions of people that need this between you and I and across the country.
Yeah.
So then
everybody's going to get old.
Exactly. People are dying to get in this business.
No.
Actually, you'll get this. I guarantee everybody's going to get involved in what I do one way or the other. Either the real estate, the business, or somebody in the family is going to be lying in a bed writing a check to somebody who does.
Yeah.
But back to this guy, he wouldn't share with me. And I said, okay, let me find somebody who's doing it. And the people that I found were not successful. So they really couldn't teach it to me from here's how to do it properly. Right. So my interest kind of went away until two things happened. The first thing was my mom. She needed help. And when she needed help, bam, it became real. It's not real estate. It's not a door or a deal. It's mom needs help. Right, and at that point, we realized there's not a lot of good alternatives. There's you take care of mom yourself, which is not how I'm designed. You pay somebody to come into the home, which is very expensive, or you bring mom and put her into a home, and you feel guilty as soon as you think about it.
Well, so then you hear all the horror stories about those too.
And the horror stories come from the big box. That's what I call the big ones with 100, 200, 300 beds where there's a handful of caregivers trying to take care of them and there's no way they can. And I just couldn't find a place that I felt good about, safe to have mom go to. So I said, that's it. I vow to create the solution, an actual home, not a hotel converted into a home or home-like, but an actual home in a neighborhood where they can live in community with each other, be well taken care of. So I did it and I created it. I knew if others, if I needed it, others would need it as well. And that's how the whole thing started, because I'm a teacher by nature. So I love to see the sparkle in somebody's eye. People were asking me right away, will you teach me how to do it? And I said, yes. And I've been doing that ever since.
No, that's a beautiful story. I mean, it's amazing how like sometimes it takes a personal situation for us to wake up to an opportunity to help not only our family, but ourselves. And like you said, to keep it simple. I like how you keep saying, look, I'm not in this for 1,000 houses. I'm not in the, you know what I mean? Like you're like, it's simple and I make more off of one house. And we're going to talk about that. So one of our main questions is what kind of deals you do. So we're clear on that. You're in the senior housing business. You've been doing it for quite some time. I love your story, like trying to go out and get somebody to help you. Man, I remember when I was trying to do that. When I first started, I was trying to get anybody to help me. And I got the same thing because I started 16 years ago. People just didn't want to teach you back then because the information just wasn't as available out there. And so it was very like quiet and hidden and no, I'm not going to share with you. I'm not going to share with you. But tenacity, I was like, I'm going to figure it out. But I'm on a different side, right? I mean, we buy apartments and commercial, but I might be doing some senior housing after this call.
Yeah.
So let's take another step. So senior housing, we're going to get into some of the monetary stuff in a minute, guys. So I know a lot of you are like, oh, well, what kind of money can you make, right? I mean, that's what everybody always asks. But let's stop for a minute because I know a lot of the people who watch this love the idea that we ask everybody that comes on here what they do for their leads. And you said something very important in the beginning. So share what you shared with me when I asked you, well, where do you get your leads from and what kind of leads do you get? So talk on that for a minute.
See, with us, and don't take this wrong, anybody who's listening here, I really
got
don't.
Thick skin.
Well, not you. I mean, everybody who's listening here, because you can. But here's the deal: is as a real estate investor, there's two parts to what I do. One is real estate. The other one is business. The easy part is the real estate. And when I say the easy part, it's bricks and sticks, it's dirt and mud, and we can scrape it away, rebuild it. The location is the critical piece to what we do. But when it comes to the real estate, and here's the part I don't want to offend anybody, I really don't care if I pay full price, retail for the house. It's not about getting a good deal and selling it for more. It's about the location. Because for us, it's the cash flow. Whether the house is worth 300 or $1 million or 2 million, it's how much income does it produce. So that income is based on the business side of it, those seniors and how much they pay and the profit that comes from that. On the real estate side, by the way, there's a great play. You can just own the real estate and lease it to the operator, get twice the market rent with a long-term, low-impact tenant, which is a beautiful combination for anybody doing buy and hold real estate.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So that kind of does flip everything on its head, right? Like, I don't care if I pay retail because for you, you're not doing same old model that everybody's going after, which is I got to get it at a discount. So they're all competing with each other out there. You're saying, hey, look, my concern is the real estate is just the box. The business is what I'm focused on. The box I need in the right location. And the way I take that box and I do senior living, I'm not getting what somebody else might get, $1,000 a month in rent. You're getting a lot more than that. So can you talk on that for a minute?
Sure. And just to give perspective, so everybody knows there's two parts, real estate and business. The real estate's a single family home. So I'm not doing a hotel conversion or a 4-unit apartment conversion or anything like that. It's just a home in a neighborhood. It tends to be a bigger home. And here's the reality. People in senior housing right now are paying $4,051 per month on average in a private room in assisted living. And that includes Medicare, Medicaid, which we don't do. So ours is above that. So really, it's like $4,000, $6,000, $8,000 per person per month. And there might be 10 of those seniors in the home. So let's just go through an average deal. He's rubbing his head now, but it's all not profit. Let me explain. Right?
I'm in the wrong business.
Well, like you said, you're going to get involved in this one way or the other side.
Oh my word.
So 4,000, let's just call that the average. And let's say 10. Some states allow you to have 6, some 16, some unlimited. Well, let's just say it's 10, easy math. Potential gross income of $40,000 a month. Now your expenses, it's going to take 70% of that, 80% of that. So your net at the end of the month, after all expenses, including the labor, the real estate, and so on, is 20 to 30%. So from a cap rate standpoint, that's enormous. 20 to 30% of that gross income is $10,000 a month on an average home. So depending on where you're at, it's $10,000, $15,000, even $20,000 a month in a single family home in profit.
Oh my word. I'm just soaking it in right now.
Yeah. Let me go a little deeper because here's the reality, guys. There's 77 million baby boomers. They're not in assisted living. They're 10 years away, but they know it's coming. They've got their parents and grandparents in those homes right now. They know their time is coming, but that's like a silver tsunami of seniors that's coming that you cannot stop. It's like seeing a stock chart 10 years in advance. You know exactly what's going to happen. 4,000 people every day turn 85 years old. That's 120,000 a month, 1.4 million people a year turning 85 in the U.S. alone. And there's not even 1.4 million beds in assisted living in America today. Now, they're not all going to move into assisted living, but hundreds of thousands of them will. And that's a crisis for many of them because there is no room at the end.
This is like insider trading. I mean, if you think about it, if this was a stock, right, and we knew this business was going through this and we could go in and play ahead and buy the stock, but this is obviously not stock, so we don't have to worry about that. But this is some good stuff right here. 1.4 million people a year are turning 85.
Yeah, on average for the next 20 years. It's amazing when you look at the chart. You know, baby boomers have been driving our economy for the last 70 years, and the last stop is assisted living. This is something that it's coming. I just attended a convention, over 400 people, and it was all about dementia and memory care, and that's a huge problem as well. I'm on the board for another company that's creating homes for autism, and there's all kinds of opportunity when it comes to group housing, but senior housing is one of those that you'd have to be a blanking fool to miss this opportunity. Right. And by the way, that's a quote from Harry S. Dent Jr. at our last national convention. He was so blue, so many F words were dropped. It was amazing. I was unprepared for that. I wasn't expecting.
I'm sure.
Robert Kiyosaki drops a lot of F-bombs too, and I got him to hold it together. You know what?
And he used to not at all.
Oh, but he is, he was
like Tony Robbins. I'd been around Tony Robbins watching his stuff forever, and he never did. And then, like, I went to one about 2 years ago, and it was F this, F that. I was like, whoa, what happened? But I want to dig a little bit more. So in California, I used to own a staffing agency. And we specialized in nurses. So we had traveling nurses, RNs, LVNs, and CNAs, and we would staff some of these type of homes. So is that kind of the same thing that you're doing? Are you bringing in like an LVN or an RN, and are they working shifts like 8 hours? Or talk to me a little bit more about that, because I know a little bit about that, and I just want to kind of see if I understand it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because some others are thinking the same way. Is this medical? The answer is no. It's really, a nursing home is medical. So doctors, nurses, gurneys, fluids, that's a nursing home, skilled nursing facility.
Yep.
Now what we do, the Golden Girls, single family home, for mature women living in the home, taking care of each other, that's not what we do, but it's right in between those two. So it's people who can't be at home alone, but they don't need a nursing home. They do need assistance. Nobody moves into assisted living without needing help, but they're there not because they need medical attention on a daily basis. They'd be in a nursing home. So the caregivers that we have are definitely not nurses and doctors. Even a CNA would be a high level for a care home. Some states, like the state of California, the requirement for a caregiver is fog a mirror, 18 years old, don't be a criminal, and like 12 hours of training within the first 30 days. That is ridiculous, by the way. They should be trained. In Arizona, by the way, it's more like a 60-hour training that they have to do. Background tests, fingerprint cards, TB tests, the whole bit. So every state's a little bit different, but they're not doctors, nurses, not even CNA.
So it's not like I'm glad I did bring that up, because I'm thinking like, we have to have a licensed, individual in there. But you said it earlier. You said it's just you got to have a babysitter in there. And so I'm assuming.
No, hang on. That's what somebody else said. So let me make sure we're clear. The state requires different things. So the state does require a manager or administrator. The requirements for that administrator could be a 24-hour course, or it could be 2 years of experience, depending on the state. But there does have to be somebody who's in charge. It's not me. I hire that person.
Right.
There are caregivers, and a caregiver can be a manager, and they have certain qualification. The house itself, whoever owns the business, has to be safe for seniors. That's not ADA compliant, Americans with Disability Act, so businesses can hire people with disabilities. We can't do that, so we don't need to be ADA compliant, but it needs to be senior safe. There needs to be a person in charge, and then there needs to be policies and procedures. So those are the three things we need.
So the people that are in charge, the person in charge, the manager, right, of the property. So are they the ones coming in like cooking meals and keeping it clean, or is that on the residents themselves?
The caregivers take care of all of those daily things. The residents certainly wouldn't. And in more of an upscale home, like some of ours, you have a chef. So there's actually somebody who prepares the food. Okay. But the caregivers are taking care of the residents as well as the food, the household, and so on.
Cleaning, sweeping, dusting, and so that's where the expenses come in, is having that manpower in there.
40 to 50% of the gross income goes towards labor. So 40 to 50% of whatever your gross income is going to be paid out in labor. It's your single biggest expense, which brings up another question, by the way, because people always wonder, you've got unemployment rates at 3.5%. That must be horrible and bad to find people. No, I can find people. I want good people. So I don't care if it's 30% unemployment. I'm always looking for good people. And the same person who's going to be a barista or a waitress is not going to be a caregiver in a care home. Those people love seniors, and that's what they do. That's their calling and their passion, and they're good at what they do. Right. So I'm always looking for good people. I don't care what the unemployment rate is. We have great caregivers. Many of them have been with us for years because we appreciate them. They're part of the team, but they're not going to go be a barista for 50 cents an hour more.
Right. So is in these homes, does someone have to be in it 24/7, or is it just, okay, it does. So there's swing shifts. So you have roughly like 3 different shifts that people come in and out of the home?
There's a number of different ways to do it, but one is shift work, which is what we do. So it's a 12-hour shift. We have 2 people during the day, 1 at night, because our homes have 10 people in it. And so 2 during the day, 1 at night. A manager could be a caregiver or could be a separate person overseeing a number of different homes. So that's how we do it. Or it could be live-in. So that person is living in the house. They sleep there in the house, and maybe somebody comes in and helps at night, or they're on duty and responsible in the evening.
Gotcha. So, all right. So I want to talk, I'm going to dig a little bit more.
Go for it. I love our pace. We can cover a lot at this pace.
I know, right? I'm right to the point. Just get to the point. So talk to me about, like, you keep saying a few times throughout this, like, we have 10 in our houses. We have 10 in our houses. So is this a house with 10 rooms, or are you putting dual people in a room?
So you can have 2 people in a room. Some states allow you to have up to 4. Please don't do that. Wow. This isn't warehousing granny. That's not what it is. So 2 in a room, but better yet, think space. And here's what I always say. Here's our rule of thumb at the RALAcademy is 300 square feet per person of living space is very comfortable. That's not their bedroom, right? So 3,000 square foot house, you could have 10 or 12 residents comfortably. By the way, the state minimum, you could do it in half that space. You could have 1,500, 1,800 square feet for 10 people. It's perfectly legal. Please don't do that either. There's homes just like that. They're full with a waiting.
You want them to be there and feel comfortable and want to stay.
Well, part of it too is that we do private pay. So you and I, if we're brothers and we're going to pay for mom, I don't want mom in a bad area of town eating rice and beans in a 1,500 square foot house with 10 other people. Right. She's going to be in a nice home where the food is great and there is a chef, and we're paying $6,000 a month, $8,000 a month, not $2,000 a month, because that's all we can afford.
Right. No, that's a good point. I think you even touched on that earlier. It was about location for you. So we're not running out here trying to find a $100,000 house in a seed type neighborhood. We're looking for a nice house in a nice neighborhood. It's close to things so that, like you said, people are willing to pay to have them in that type of environment. I like that. Because I think some people get confused, like with what you just said. Oh, well, how many people can I shove in here? How many people can I shove in here? And I mean, if you're making $10,000 a month off of one house, and
that's an average home. I'm going to encourage you to do above average anyway.
Oh man, that's incredible. Man, this is good. I like this, Gene. So let's go back to I just want to make sure everybody's clear. So when we talk about marketing on the show, you're basically saying, look, I don't have to do what you guys are doing because I'm looking for a nice home in a nice neighborhood and I'll pay retail for it. So you could go to an agent and say, look, I need this much square footage, this many bedrooms in a nice area, find me one.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to make this as valuable as possible for the people listening. So certainly we can talk more about the assisted living. I'll even give them a free book if you want to give it to them.
Yeah, that's a good point. So hold on a second. So guys, if you're watching this and you're like, man, you're going so fast, Gene's been gracious enough to give a book to us to give out to everybody. There'll be a link in the description. So if you're listening to this on podcast or YouTube, just go in the description, click the link. He's willing to give it to you. It's his gift to you guys, and hopefully you'll take advantage of that. All right, go ahead, Gene.
Yeah, so here's one of the mistakes. I always like when people ask, what are the mistakes or challenges? So one of the mistakes that people make is they say, look, I've got a big, beautiful house. I've got it for free. It costs me nothing. It's 7,000 square feet. It's got 15 bedrooms and 15 bathrooms. Like, great, where is it? Well, it's out in the middle of the desert where nobody's going to go. It's in the middle of someplace where nobody wants to be. It's like, forget it. You don't even bother to try, because think about it for a minute. Who's going to make the decision on where mom and dad are going to live? You and I are, the kids, the grandkids. So it's got to be close to us. Over the river and through the woods is good once a year, right? When we want to go visit mom, it's got to be convenient. So I want you to think differently. The house, within 20 minutes of that house, so in California, that's like a mile and a half.
Yeah.
So, within 20 minutes, somebody within the family is going to live within 20 minutes of that house, and 80% of the time. So that's your demographic. So now what I'm looking for is more upscale, not low. So they're Medicare, Medicaid, but more upscale. So not Beverly Hills, top of the top, cream of the crop, but what we call level 3, 4 out of 5 levels. 5 is on the top, 1 is on the bottom. So it's an upper middle income, but higher, and lots of people around who are of age. So I'm in my 50s, so parents are in our 80s and 90s. Mm-hmm. We're the customer, they're the resident. They're living in the home that we chose for them to live in, and we're writing the check to pay the owner. So the demographics are key. When I choose the planet, the country, the state, the town, now I need to learn the rules of that area, and then I'm going to find either a house or a piece of land, and that's where I'm going to begin the process.
Gotcha. And so I want to make sure people understand. So you talked from levels 5 through 1. I think in our world, in the residential house world, we refer to them as A-class neighborhoods, B-class neighborhoods, C-class. Yeah. So you're probably leaning more into the B-class type neighborhoods, right?
B plus.
B plus. Okay.
In that word vernacular.
Right. I just know some of we get a lot of new people that watch these, right? And so they're like, what's he talking about? 5 to 1. So you touched on this a little bit. So I have 2 more questions for you here about like the model itself and really about how you improve. So what's something along this journey that when you got into this and you started doing these things, what was one thing that you just did completely wrong and you were like, look, I learned from that, we built a better process and we moved forward?
I think the biggest theme is the idea of do it yourself. And I actually teach this to people now. It's like, all right, whenever you say the words, I got this, reach out your hand and slap it. It's like, no, you are not the best, the smartest, the only one who can do it. So there's times where I said, I'm going to be my own general contractor because I'm going to save myself some money. No, I didn't. I cost myself money, more importantly, time. So the concept of do it yourself. So in what we do, when people get into this, if they don't listen to what I say or they've never been trained by me on how to do residential assisted living, one of the biggest mistakes they make is to say, well, I'm going to be the manager to start because I'm going to get it going. Then I'll pass the reins on this. Forget it. You're never going to do it. You don't know what you're doing. It's a job. Right. You're going to get sucked in. You're not going to know what to do. There's no way to get out of that.
So did you make those mistakes when you first started?
No. And see, that's it. When people ask me what mistakes, there was nobody to train me on what to do. So when I got started, I just had to buy an existing one and say, let me de-engineer this thing and figure out what's right and what's wrong. Yeah. So it was expensive. That's painful. It's hard.
Well, let's dig on that then. So when you bought one and you were re-engineering it, what did you identify that they might have been doing wrong that you improved?
All right. So one of the things, you talked about caregivers. So one of the things is I got in there and it's like, wow, their labor costs are really low. These people are willing to work for $1,800 a month and they get free room and board. That's awesome. Until you realize they're immigrants from Romania here on a vacation visa, and they've got to leave in 6 months. And number two, you're paying them less than minimum wage, and that's illegal. You can't do that. Somebody's going to get in trouble. Right. So I learned that because once I got in there, realized they couldn't really understand what I was saying, which is not a good thing as well. And then also that they're like, by the way, we're going back to Romania in 2 weeks. And so thanks a lot, but we're out of here because their visa's running out. It's like, I didn't have a clue. So you need properly trained caregivers who are English speaking, who love what they do, who want to be with you long term. That was one lesson I learned.
And I bet the long-term thing is probably has more value than people even realize because, these are people that want to feel safe. They want to get to know the caregiver and they want to see the same faces over and over again. And if you've got constant turnover going on, like they just never know who's coming in. It's almost like now they got to relearn people, right? And so that could be kind of scary for a senior. So then let's talk about something that you have dialed in that you do completely right. Like you're like, this is our blueprint. This is what we do every single time.
Wow. So, again, what we do, you can buy an existing business, you can buy a house and convert it, and you can just take raw land and build it. So each one of those has, here's what you do every time within it. Yeah. But if you're going to buy it, let's start with the first one. If you're going to buy an existing business, number one, it has criteria, and there's a reason why they're selling it. So what's their motivation? If the business itself is not profitable, don't buy it. Right? That's one. Right. But the concept of that, it could be that it's in the wrong location, it's too small, they charge too little, whatever it may be. So if the right things are wrong, like there's other ones where they're charging too little because they've been in the business for 20 years and never raised their rates. Well, that I can deal with. So
because you can fix that.
Yeah, we can fix that.
What's all right? So, man, this is so much good stuff. I know we're usually only on here for about 40 minutes, and I want to keep going. This is a good one for me too. On average, let me just ask you this way: if someone, let's just say you've got somebody that is under your tutelage and they're following you and they're like, okay, I'm going to go find a house. On average, from the time that they actually purchase that property, what's the time frame look like on average? I know you can't be specific, but on average, for them to actually get that house stabilized and producing and their team together and getting it all running and start to actually be profitable from it. Is it a couple of months, 3 months, 6 months? I mean, what is it like?
And it is a big depends.
I know, right?
Let's say it is an existing business, so theoretically it's profitable day one, or you can fix that in a short period of time. The second way is to buy the house, do whatever renovations, get it licensed and started. That process could take 6 months to 12 months to do. Okay. Now, we've had students do it in 2 months, but I'm going to tell you 6 to 12 months to do that process. The stabilization part, I'm going to say 2 new residents a month. That's conservative as a fill rate, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 5 months. But we've had students fill their house within 1 month.
Right.
So usually once the house is 60% full, so 6 out of 10 residents, 60%, you're at break even. 7, 8, 9, 10 is all pure profit.
Gotcha. No, I like that you're transparent about it. This isn't like rainbows and cupcakes, right? Like this is a business. You got to work it. You got to get out there. You have to understand there's stabilization in any type of business or cash flow opportunity. And so I appreciate that. So let me ask you this. So what are your goals for 2020? So what are you going to be focused on?
Yeah, my wife and I, when we first did the first one, and by the way, what's really cool about this, my wife has been incredibly supportive. I've been married for 34 years. We've known each other for 40 years. But when and I've never had a real job. So that's hard for a spouse. It really is.
Yeah, sure.
But she's always been supportive, but it's always been like, okay, you go ahead, you do that. And this is the first one that she is more involved than I am, that she is excited about it. And even my kids, who are now age 30 down to 21, they asked me if they can come work with me, which has blown me away. So it's a family-run business, and we have lots of others as well, but it's a family as a core.
Yeah.
But I was jumping off on this because you asked which question. I want to make sure I'm hitting the right.
What are your goals for 2020? Like, what are you focused on? So I know you said earlier you had 6, and it's not like you're not trying to go do 100 deals a month like most people are. So what are your goals?
Yeah. So when we did the first home, my wife and I looked at each other and said, we're making a lot of money, but we're helping a lot of people.
Right.
What I mean by that is we've been at birthday parties with 80 or 100 people at it. I did some math, and I quickly realized every resident, every caregiver, every manager, whatever, we're positively impacting, or at least have the opportunity to positively impact 80 to 100 people per person. So even with a 10-bed home over the course of a couple of years, we can impact 1,000 people. So we set a goal, and the goal was 1,000 homes in 1,000 days, so we can positively impact 1 million people.
1,000 homes. I love that. I got to write that down.
1,000 homes in 1,000 days, so we can positively impact 1 million people. And that's by the end of 2020. And we are right on track. We're, somewhere between 500 and 1,000 homes. We don't quite know, because people don't always tell us, hey, I took your course and I have a home. But we're over that point now. We'll definitely hit that by the end of 2020. And we're just having an impact on this industry. And
100% you are. I mean, you came out of nowhere with this, and people are just like, who is this guy? Like, I remember when I first met you, I was like, what is this guy teaching on, and I think it's wonderful. So I want to be clear, because you said 1,000 homes in 1,000 days. That's you and all your students, right? That's the ripple effect. You're teaching others how to do what you do. And so amongst your community, your goal is community-wide, not just you personally.
Not me. My goal has never been to have 1,000 homes. Our goal is to have 4. And that was just pulled from error, by the way. PFA, as I say, it was, 1 would give us enough money to pay our bills, so let's have 2. Then I said, if we're going to have 2, let's have 4. Yeah. And then I said, well, let's have a medium, a high, and a high-end home, so this way we can cover anybody who comes to us. We've got a home in your price range for you. So once we got to the end of 3, we said, that's it. We don't need any more. But recently we've expanded from 3 to 6, and now I'm investing in homes across the country. And we're opening up new companies so people can, I own and operate. I have another company where we teach people how to. We have another company where people can invest in. We have a media company. We're starting an operations company. So it's just expanding all over.
Yeah. That's kind of funny how that happens, right? when you get into the public world, like, it just grows and grows and grows, right? But it goes back to your mission, right? I mean, if you want to do 1,000 homes in 1,000 days, you got to get your voice out there. You got to get people to hear it and hear the message. And I think that's wonderful. So I was about to ask you a question, but I think it isn't even relevant to you, because one of my questions is always, how do you think the current market and where it's going will affect you? But I think you've answered that through this whole thing. Like, I don't think it will affect you. Yeah,
the value of the asset that you're in, the real estate,
doesn't matter to you, does it?
And we profit the same whether we're leasing the property or own the property. So if we're leasing it, that may be the play. And I'm at that point where I'm thinking everything is cyclical. We've been going up for 10 years, can't keep going up. So if you lease it with an option to buy it, you exercise that option a year or 2 or 3, or whenever the market comes down, corrects, that could be a good play as well. So leasing is, I was at an open house for one of our students in Phoenix, Arizona just a few days ago, and they're leasing the house, and it's a gorgeous house. What they're paying for the lease, they couldn't own the property. And they're going to make a boatload in the business.
Well, and I've seen some of your videos. I mean, the houses that you're not buying cheap houses.
No.
Like, you're buying some really pretty properties.
Yeah. 6,000 square feet. $500,000 to $1 million are the ones that we do, and that's pretty common within our industry, I would say.
Yeah, no, I love that. All right, so let me ask you this then, Mr. Gene. What's your best advice for a new person coming into this space?
Into assisted living or real estate?
No, in your space. This is about you.
Learn what to do before you attempt to do it. Like your cautionary tale when you started. That's my biggest advice for people right there. And some people aren't going to do it. They're going to say, I'll figure it out.
I know.
Look at their head handed to them and they'll come back. But I think also beyond that, because that's kind of the obvious, and that's not self-serving, it's preserving you. But the other part is decide what part you want to play. I think too many times in life, people get sucked in, like I did with the music school and the recording studio. We opened the recording studio so we would have a place to record our own music.
Right.
It ended up being, we're hiring it out to other people to record their music. It's like, that's not, so what are you doing it for? And if you're going to get into this and your goal is to be hands off, I don't want to be the manager, then don't start by being the manager.
Right.
Hire that person with the skill set who needs to do what you don't want to do, so you can go off and do the other things you want to do.
I love it, man. Man, you're full of knowledge. I mean, anybody would be blessed to be able to sit in a room with you and listen. I know you do events too, don't you?
We do. We do live 3-day trainings. We have inner circles. We do our national convention once a year. We had over 650 people in October. It was great.
Well, you got to tell me when the next one is. I want to come.
I'd love to have you as my guest.
Yeah, I would love to come. I'd love to.
My invitation to you. So that's that website, just if people want to know, is RALNatCon.com. They can go there, check it out. Be a video from last year. We had Robert Kiyosaki, Harry S. Dent Jr., 20 other educational sessions, 600 plus people. It was great. Wow. Jonathan Goldsmith, the most interesting man in the world, showed up again, a good friend. So it was good.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, don't forget about us small people, okay? I'm being for real. I'd love to come out to your event. I'd love to hear what you're doing. Guys, listen, Gene has absolutely shared. I mean, if your mind's not open now about senior living, I don't know what else we could do for you. But we did do one other thing. Get the link in the description. Get his book. Like, follow through with some of the things he's sharing and teaching. You know, get around this guy. I mean, he's doing some amazing things, some really amazing things. And I know that, you know, you don't have to do this. And I appreciate you coming on here, man.
Sure. I love it.
I really do.
You're fun, man. This is a great interview. You're a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Well, listen, it's not over yet because I got hot fire questions for you. All right, here's how I end every one of them with my hot fire questions. Are you ready? All right, here we go. Hot fire question number 1. Where's your best place you vacation at?
The place I just booked, haven't told my wife again, it'll be our 3rd time there. It's Paradise Island in the Bahamas in an Airbnb that is private and really cool. Awesome.
All right, tell me, what was your first automobile?
Wow. It was the Love Boat. It was
the Love Bug?
No, the Love Boat. It was a big, large white station wagon that floated down the road. I was a drummer, so I needed a place so it would float. It would like float.
You docked it, right?
You docked it. It was the Love Boat.
What's your favorite season or holiday?
Wow, I think Thanksgiving is absolutely it.
Awesome. Love that. What's your best podcast? Not yours, not mine. I know everybody likes to say, like, oh, yours, Zach. This is not about me. This is about other people, like business, motivation. What's a podcast that you might listen to here and there that just rings a bell?
You know, it's so funny. I'm going to give you 2 that, first of all, this is great. And I'm sure all of your episodes are just as entertaining. But the real estate guys are very educational, bringing a lot of different guests on different topics, not just real estate. And then I've been listening to, it's my guilty pleasure on YouTube, but a lot of Howard Stern clips. So,
yes, I remember when Siri first came, or not Siri, but XM Radio first came out and he switched over. I had the little XM Radio attachment with the wire and the antenna on top of the car. I listened to him for years. Yeah, he is very entertaining. But where he's gone with it, though, is not what it used to be.
No, I agree.
10 years ago, it was, but today, he's just different. He digs into a lot more about just real stuff today. And so I do appreciate where he's going with it. All right, next question for you. What's your favorite food?
I'm going to have to say all.
All food. You're like seafood. I see it, I eat it, right?
Hey, I am Italian, so like last night I went to a cigar bar and I had meatballs. So just meatballs and cigars and red wine.
That works, man. That works. That actually sounds like fun. All right. Are you an early riser or do you sleep in?
I'm an early riser, but I'm a late. I stay up late too. I stay up till midnight or 2, and I'll get up at 6, 7, 8. So
yeah, I'm with you. I stay up late too, and I have to get up at 5:30. I got small kids. Favorite book? What's a great book that you've read recently?
Ooh.
Or Audible, like you listen to it.
I was going to say, because it's good on Audible. He's got a whole different style, but The Wolf on Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
A good book on sales, and he's got a lot of skills. Got up in prison for it, but now he's using it for good.
He did make a big turn, I'm not going to lie, but he does have a lot of great input and strategies on what I like to say communication, right? Yeah. How to communicate efficiently, right? So, all right, man, last question. What's your favorite movie?
I'm going to give you 2. So
okay.
It's actually so many comedy. I'm going to give you The Rocket Man, not the current one, but the old one with Harlan Williams, the comedian.
Oh, yeah. That is an old one.
All right. Suspense movie, The Game, with Sean Penn and Michael Douglas. That is such a cool movie.
That kept me on the seat.
And one more, The Player. So all these one-liner movies, The Player, it's about kind of Hollywood stories, and it's The Player.
The Player.
So Hollywood stories.
I don't know if I know.
Tim Robbins is one of the actors in that one, The Player.
Okay. Well, cool, man. Well, listen, thanks for the hot fire questions, and thanks for being on here. And guys, you heard it here. You heard it first with the Coffee with Closers show. And don't forget to click in the link below. Get Gene's free book. He's just giving it to you to help you out. If you are looking for a strategy that you don't have to run out and compete with everybody and stress on how many leads you're getting and worrying about if one tenant's going to move out or not, like, I love what Gene has done here, and I love how simple it is. Really, you're a business owner. That's what it really boils down to. So I think that was the overall message that I took away from his strategy, is you're really operating a business and you're not in real estate. And so I love that. I love everything about it. And guys, Zack Childress here, and I'll see you on the next Coffee with Closers. Zack Attack out.